Hey, this is Pete Saronis of Dots and Bridges, and welcome to our Thought Leadership Consortium. The public and private sectors share a symbiotic relationship, one that requires a good bit of competence, humility, and integrity in order to foster trust. However, well-intentioned efforts to collaborate across government and industry tend to focus on a buy-sell paradigm versus a seeker-solver opportunity. Our conversations hope to dispel a few myths, share some enlightening insights, and address technology's societal impact. Hello and welcome to the Dots and Bridges Thought Leadership Consortium. I am Pete Saronis and I am fired up to have my colleague, friend, pal, buddy, Mr. Ron Thompson, the Chief Data Officer and Deputy Digital Transformation Officer at NASA. Ron, fired up to see you, pal.
Good to see you too, Pete, and thanks for having me on today.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm excited. And for our audience, you're going to hear about someone whose journey through government, private industry, and some of the extracurricular is beyond amazing, and the passion will be obvious. So, Ron, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of your wonderful accolades, but I promise not to brag too much. Is that okay with you?
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it. You got it, pal. More than 30 years of experience in leadership roles spanning government. I counted, Ron, 7 agencies: NASA, USDA, VA, HHS, the IRS, the Census Bureau, Treasury proper. A little bit of action at HP Compaq, and of course, in the wonderful world of the Beltway, our Industry Advisory Council, or the American Council for Technology and Industry Advisory Council. So your efforts there obvious, especially to the Beltway crowd. You're an Army veteran, you're a Scoutmaster, which I know is going to be something that has been influential in your life. And you're an awesome father and a husband, not to mention an MBA from University of Maryland, and maintaining a BS in at the University of Maryland as well. So you got a pedigree, you've got this crazy walkabout that I think's amazing. And really, Ron, I'm going to jump right in because in your latest jaunt through government, here you are, the Chief Data Officer and the Deputy Digital Transformation Officer. Hey, man, how do those two jobs commingle? Are they unique and separate, or are they kind of one and the same?
Yeah, Pete. So listening to sort of your description of my journey, it's kind of overwhelming to see 7 different agencies spanning over 30 years. Quickly, the time has gone by. I would say my journey wasn't well planned, well orchestrated. There was a lot of divine intervention and doors opening for me, and just blessed to have those opportunities. The current role in NASA, it's an amazing agency, very diverse in mission, and very talented people that make up the agency. I would say the two roles really are interconnected. The Chief Data Officer, we saw how that was memorialized in 2019 by statute. So there is a statutory component to that, to the CDO role for reporting to make sure we are moving forward as an agency in that space. And digital transformation is really about changing the mindset, right? Changing the culture, using digital as a lever, moving the agency forward, and automating routine practices to make sure our workforce can elevate their worth to higher value work. And then we are looking at transforming our workplace as well. So that's our physical assets, right? Where we physically reside. NASA, we do have a component where we have to deliver and build and launch. And then, transforming our workforce, making sure that folks have the opportunity for training, for learning new skills, and being prepared for the next generation.
No, great entree there. I have to, a couple of words I wrote down. And again, what I love to do is listen, take the note mentally, but it's always an education as much as I have a good sense of what you do, Ron. It's truly amazing. You mentioned partnerships and problem solving, and you mentioned culture and humanity, 2 words that really resonate and are aligned with transformation. Obviously, the agenda in any administration, we're in a new one now, a time of transition, it's about infrastructure and IT. It's about data and accountability. It's about, most importantly, I think, and you nailed it, is the 21st century workforce. How are we preparing for that? So, again, 30 years, and you've been in the, like me, you've rolled up your sleeve and worked in that operational arm, and here you are, a senior executive, and I know you've been a CIO, and you've worked on programs that are expansive. Ron, at NASA, and again, folks, the vision for NASA is to discover and expand knowledge for the benefit of humanity. You didn't hear rockets, you didn't hear aerospace, but I think Ron is going to share some insights around NASA here that a lot of us don't realize is in the title in and of itself. But again, it's a federal agency, and Ron, you're a senior technologist. You were focused on a lot of what goes into transforming culture. When I think of a chief data officer, and statutorily assigned, it's another chief something or other. What is your particular goal, interest, or hope that your legacy with regard to data in an institution like NASA? What do you want to leave in your wake?
So we can get into the FAIR principles of data. We can get into data as a strategic asset, the new oil. I think folks have heard that. All those things are true. However, what I would like to really make sure that we as an agency, and we not only NASA, but we across government and we across private sector too, can really come to the point where we're stronger collectively than we are alone. Let's look together where we can solve problems and align our goals. So congruent goals, is very, very important to make sure we transform. Digital just is a lever for transformation. We do have to think differently. We mentioned the next workforce and thinking in a world that's really democratized and where we share data openly, and transparency is not second nature, but first order of how we do things, and making sure information is available at all levels. So I hope that I leave behind is that transparent, that sharing, that openness, that trust. That's really the value. And we as senior leaders across the agency, we just had a conversation earlier today, really need to be mindful of what responsibilities we have. It is not like what is under our area responsibility, how we're held accountable, but what are we doing to make that ready for that next workforce? Because our pace of delivery, that's one thing that we really anchor to. The speed in which we're delivering everything that NASA does, from launching to space exploration to studying the Earth science to robotics, robotic missions. We want to be able to deliver everything we do 25% faster than we have in the past. So that is a goal we've set for ourselves as part of our transformation. And we are working through our mission directorates. So that's our organizations out of the business that's responsible for these activities. We're working with them to find areas of synergy where we can come together collectively across the organization and invest in where those barriers exist and look at solutions that will increase our pace of delivery.
Wonderful. And I think you segue, as you laid it out, is to talk a little bit about NASA and its incredibly diverse mission. Mission directorate is a term. There is the Human Exploration and Operations Director, the Aeronautics Research Director, the Science Director, the Space Technology Director, and of course the Mission Support Directorate. Folks listening and watching, if you're thinking about learning about the NASA, go out to the website, nasa.gov, download leadership, download organizational chart, and understand the difference, as Ron pointed out, between a mission directorate, a center, and there are 12 of those, and then those centers in their overview. These are Langley Research, Glenn Research, Goddard Space Flight, Marshall, and then some wonderful, as I like to say, places like the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the Goddard Institute for Space Studies. I'm mentioning a few here as I look at them. Just an amazing culture and environment. So Ron, the loaded question is, since you went there, How does all of this align to the ultimate mission, which is about, humanity and exploration? What are some little known things about NASA? Yes, technology underpins, but what can you tell us and share with us about just your experience there and the time you've been there that sort of is part mind blowing and exciting and, oh my gosh, I never knew NASA did that?
Yeah, I think, overall, coming into the organization, you think about, the launches, right? It's the, and especially now during this pandemic, we're still launching those. We're still on schedule, working with our commercial partners, still launching vehicles. So exciting robotics mission, exciting advances in aeronautics. But really, an eye-opening aspect to me, Pete, was around the economic impact of NASA. So if you look at NASA's overall spend, we're about half of 1% of the total federal budget, right? In there, we generate about 64 billion annually economic output. So you're looking at an investment of 1 times to 3 times how we are advancing, not only our mission, but our economic input for the nation. We're really looking at, advancements in air mobility. So at some point we will be like the Jetsons, flying around in cars. So that's the stuff that we're advancing in the aeronautics world, and as well with our commercial launch partners. We will be landing the first woman and the next man on the moon in very short order. That is still an area of focus for us. We will be moving forward with that program to land on the moon and then to Mars. So as well as studying the Earth and climate impacts. So that's a shift that we're seeing in this administration. So it's an all-in, it's an and activity that we're doing, and focus. So we're really excited. And I would say, you mentioned the 7 different agencies. I'm pretty excited to be here at this point in time, because really everything I've had open, the doors open for me, has led me to this position right now to be the change agent, to really focus on the next generation of NASA. NASA is to really transform the agency. And that is, I was green lighted today on direction to really take a look at the operating model for the agency, to really take a look at how we're working, and to take the functions that were historically developed in a geographic location and take those and cut them across, so cut across engineering across all NASA versus engineering within a geographic center, how we've done it in the past. So we're really taking a look at that operating model, how it works, and transforming it to this next generation.
Yeah, that's a really unique illustration. And I hope those listening, again, you can go and look at an org chart and see boxes and the what I like to call that east-west communication, an operating model. Ron, you're obviously experienced in where you've been, even in industry, that it exists. It's not a government versus, silo effect versus industry. So thank you for painting that picture. And just to kind of close out, that should be a nice sampling for anybody on the diversity of NASA. And of course, obviously some high level goals of Ron in the role that you have, that you're going to undertake. But again, publicly available here, fiscal year 21 budget, 23.271 billion. It's a little bit higher, about 642 million more than last year. So those of you who buy or sell into NASA, there's a lot of money there to go align your capabilities to support. And Ron mentioned the Moon to Mars campaign, human exploration, the Orion, the SLS, the ground systems. These are just some terms, the International Space Station, lunar landings. These are the mission components, Ron, that coming from government in the agencies I had the luxury of serving. I served 3, but I think that's missed a lot. So as we pivot here into the journey of Ron Thompson and the experiences you've had in government, but at varying locations where mission mattered, I'm going to ask you to wear your IT hat here. Can you speak to the opportunity for industry? And I don't care if it's a tech company or a business process reengineering company or a training company when they come. How important is that doing your homework and preparing for what you believe as a seller you can provide to the agency in terms of value proposition?
Yeah, I think the word is alignment. It is pretty easy to come up with sort of a nice tool or a nice process to do things. But if that doesn't align to with the goals and objectives and really the metrics of the organization, so know the numbers, know where current opportunities are. We can call them pain points, opportunities, and a lot of this is, Pete, you mentioned publicly accessible, right? There's information on the agency's website. So there's information on the GAO audits about what is, where organizations have maybe fallen behind and need to invest in. We see the Technology Modernization Fund, being one on top of mind for the next administration coming in. So we're going to see levers in there. But if I were to put my industry hat on, I've worked for, as you mentioned, HP and Compaq. Whatever you're bringing to the customer, make sure there is a direct correlation to mission. This is less about now the IT operations and boxes and endpoints and networks than it is. What is that? What is what you bring going to really impact that mission? And is it quantifiable? Is there a good business case? Is there a good alignment? Do your homework. Be prepared. You mentioned scouting, Scoutmaster. Be prepared. Don't go in assuming just because you may have world-class, product. Don't assume that that's going to naturally connect. Don't assume that. Find out exactly where that alignment is, and then tell your story. That's really the last thing I want to really amplify. Tell your story where you've done this in the past, and then where you've done it for. Where have you done it for cultures like mine, right? So where I am right now, NASA is a very scientific agency, right? So a lot like the DOE, where you've been, Pete. So where have you done work in organizations like where your customers are, like mine for this example, and then where are the parallels to where they are and what you are, and really get the boots on the ground perspectives, right? This is a very small community. You and I know that, Pete. People know each other. They know about where you are. And I would say some agencies may be further ahead, some a little behind, but overall we're pretty much in the same space. If you look at things sort of at a high level, there are opportunities to become more efficient and effective, and then bring in the next, whiz bang, whatever it is, but make sure that does align to what the pain points are. And a lot of areas, Pete, there is a perspective of the IT shop and their perspective of the business. So know if there's a tight synergy, that's great. But if there is also a chasm between the two, know why and then what that chasm is, and then how you can bring them together. Now, luckily for NASA, we're a very tightly coupled community and very much aligned. But in some organizations, that's not always the case. In some organizations, based on leadership, that may diverge or converge together.
Yeah, I loved your gesture. It's bridge building.
It is,
and it's so much of that human nature component, or should I just call it being a human being, to knock on a door, find out what somebody's having a bad day, or maybe they just are in violent agreement, but having conversations in a world that's become so digitally connected. Thank you for bringing that humanity piece into the discussion. You mentioned it. I mean, Ron, I kind of have a teed up question about, some of these stops along the way and some of your leadership learnings. But, being a Scoutmaster, I had a chance my kids were kind of starting to do some of that and went on a few camping trips. I was always amazed at just the passion, the fervor, the desire to be in a role, molding, shaping, young individuals and teaching them the values that are just so important, that obviously translate to professional working environments as well. But what's that experience, and how are there some nuggets of the Scoutmaster experience that have helped shape some of your leadership style in government?
Absolutely. So I have a older son that is he'll be 21 this spring. So he eagled before he was 18. I have a younger son that's 15, so he'll eagle. So there's a personal connection. Now I wasn't in the Scouts as a young man. Didn't get that opportunity. I wish I would have. It would have prepared me for that military jump off. But so why am I doing it? Not just as a dad, although I celebrate the successes of my boys. Very, very proud of both of them. But I also believe, and this is sort of giving back to public service. You know, Pete, at 17, before I graduated high school, I enlisted in the Army, finished my senior year of high school, and wanted to fly. So it was a high school to flight school. So that path didn't work out because of my eyes needed to be corrected. So I got into something else. But serving others is really to the core of my being. It really is why I'm in the federal space, and then serving the next generation, getting these young men, and now Scouts, and it's all inclusive. So we have women part of the program, but my troop is a male troop. So getting these young men prepared, where I wasn't at that stage early in life. So getting them to lead others, getting them to actually take charge, plan, produce, getting them to do what they do and be really in charge, and give them the really a safe environment in which to do that, to adjust, to pivot. So believe it or not, those are all great things, but guess what? There's also a personal thing coming back, and they're giving back to me. And here is the real big eureka moment for me. And there's something in the adult training called Wood Badge, and Wood Badge is essentially like the candidate development program for executives, right? It really gives you these leadership principles and gives you the tools and capabilities. So if you look at that as a Scout leader, you go through a Wood Badge. And I got to a point where taking that, and I did CDP as well, but taking that it really pivoted my thinking. This next generation, and why is this important now to work, is this next generation requires the why. You know, when I came up, you didn't really ask why. You just did, right? Mm-hmm. If somebody was above you, you executed. My military time, you saluted and drove on, and you did whatever you needed to do. But the realization that I had early in my scouting career was I have to explain the context. I have to explain the motivation. I have to explain the why to these folks. And that is extremely important in the workforce as well. Because if we become very directive and just do what I say, we're not going to get that buy-in. And as leaders, we don't do. We lead. You know, we make sure that obstacles are removed. We make sure that our people can be successful. So that was an eye-opening moment for me. And luckily, I caught it very early on. I interconnected and wove it into my work. So that was a selfish thing coming back to me. They helped me be a better leader, not only in Scouts, but in the workforce.
Yeah, I like the serving others, the personal get back. It's interesting. You're describing these, what you're teaching and being taught about leading others and planning and producing. I mean, Ron, you know, I was blessed to be a senior executive service member, leading people, leading teams, being results driven, being able to write and speak written communications, having business acumen. I mean, it's almost like a really early SES executive core qualification training course. So that just hit me, man. I love that when I think of what, you know, coming up through the Scouts can prepare you for in life. And I love that story, because again, I wasn't one. It wasn't impressed upon me. I had friends, and I always was like, wow, they get to wear these cool uniforms and badges, but I don't know what's going on. But boy, were they learning some amazing skills. Great. So Ron, let's now jump to some of these. This is a kind of a loaded question, but feel free to answer. however you see fit. It's mentoring, coaching. Okay, you're obviously doing that in this Scoutmaster domain, but you don't get to be an SES without folks who've influenced you. And I'm always talking in the community, having come out of government myself, and 5 years now, it's how important it is to observe, if you're industry, that there are people who influence Ron Thompson every day of the week. And Ron is obviously somebody, as I would say, is there looking forward to helping pay it forward, whatever you want to call it. Can you speak about some of maybe some mentoring moments that really transformed your view or perspective, or kind of pivoted you back on the right path? I've had a few, but I always find that interesting because people influencing who we are don't sometimes get the recognition, or it's not brought up as much, because you didn't learn all this on your own, right?
Well, I was very fortunate to have a very dear friend of mine, and I assume it's okay to mention names. So very fortunate to have help in Gloria Parker, who is, you may know Gloria.
I know Gloria, wonderful woman.
Very well known in our community, and she is a dear friend. So early on, I think I was at the Census Bureau at the time, so that shows you how far that in time, that's probably 25 years ago now. And we ran across each other. Gloria Parker was the first African-American CIO in government, and she was leading HUD and then over at education as well. So she and I just became very, we met and became very close friends over the journey. So she's helped me immensely. When we were driving before the pandemic, when we were driving back and forth to work, we would have daily calls back and forth. So she was very helpful. There are times, all of us, where we need guidance, where we need, help dealing with things, and life isn't always easy, right? So the challenges and how you navigate them. So she was extremely, and continues to be extremely helpful. Not only to me, Gloria has tremendous amount of people that she's helping in the agency. So she helped my career, but also gave me a model to help others as well. So, I have quite a few folks that I'm mentoring through the SES process or through their careers, and getting them opportunities, and making sure that we have a diverse and inclusive environment to, in everything we do. So Gloria is really was very instrumental to me about where I am and who I am. And then, there were countless others, Pete, that really helped me. I had an old boss that was fantastic at the Census Bureau, that got me early to think about things differently and be confident with myself to try new things, right? Because a lot of folks won't challenge themselves and may stay with a particular organization for a long time. I will tell you, my best opportunities came when I was uncomfortable. That first job I had when I left the government and went to private industry was really terrifying. Why am I going to leave the safety of an employer? But it really opened me up to earn my MBA, to run profit and loss in the industry, to really get that commercial experience that I think has helped me as a government person too. So Pete, it wasn't a well orchestrated plan. I think Providence had a big part of opening doors for me, and help, and asking for help and where you need help. So if you're looking at your early career and you say, hey, what do I do? Reach out to some experienced individual that can guide you through here, because you cannot do this alone. You cannot always see yourself, in a way that you really need to. Are you really looking at where you need to invest training and invest ways you're doing things? We may tend to get down and in at times and forget that we do need that external perspective. So get yourself a good mentor early.
Yeah, you're gonna, maybe believe it or not, I'm a huge fan of Gloria.
Yes.
Gloria and I worked at education together
Yeah.
way back in the day, when it wasn't even CIO, it was like IT IRM director. So,
Yeah.
Gloria, when you watch it, obviously, if your ears are burning, you got a lot of love here from Pete and Ron. Um, so, Ron, I guess a question that's going to be one of these out of the blues is what is the most challenging aspect of this job? I mentioned you've been a CIO in days past. You've been a program director. I mean, at USDA alone, you were the CIO of a very special statistical component. Can you share the experiences of being sort of that operational CIO, and now you're in more of a, well, you're always in a strategic role, but how do you differentiate for those watching what it's like to be a CIO in government and now in a position of sort of strategic envisioning around an agency like at NASA?
Yeah. So it is a distinct way you look at things, right? Obviously, Pete, we both have come up in that operational side of the house, and your hair is on fire. You're putting out the next thing, so you're always so that's exciting, actually, you know. But you get to a point where you say, now, what can I do for prevention, right? So look at this in a way that I like to describe data. So it's hindsight, insight, foresight for data, right? So hindsight's pretty easy because that's after something happened. You can say, yeah, we should have done this. We can fix that. Insight is what you sort of your intuition, right? Where do you think it may be? You know, where right now, where do you think it may be going? But foresight, why is that important, Pete? Because this is really what strategy is about, right? Foresight really means what can I do to predict what's going to happen to prevent, for NASA, prevent an event, right? To prevent a safety issue, right? So that foresight is something that we're using in data and transformation, using digital as a lever. We want to make sure we have the foresight to prevent and to be more effective, more efficient, and to design the next NASA, right? So the skill sets that I'm learning about this opportunity that's open for me is the influential skill set, right? It is pretty easy looking back where I've been, and I didn't realize it at the time. It's pretty easy if you have big budgets, right? But in big budgets, the problems are more complex. You have a lot of money to do things. You can buy more people. But guess what? A lot of the foresight's still the same. It's still needed regardless of the size of what you need. So having that direct responsibility is easy in a sense because you can direct resources to it. It's hard, Pete, when you only have influence. So that's a whole nother skill set you have to learn and have in your bag. As a leader, it isn't about telling people what to do. It's convincing them to do it, right? So that is really exciting to me, and that's what really is. I'm still learning that. I will confess I am no expert in that yet, but every day is a learning opportunity. Every day I go back and look at that hindsight and say, yeah, I could have done this, but I am getting better at the foresight. So predicting where we're going to go.
You know what? I'm gonna steal and give credit where credit's due, but the hindsight, insight, foresight is so spot on, and I love that one. That was a great one for anybody watching. Just think about what Ron's talking about. We've been somewhere where here we are, and we want to go and to bring some of that ideation and so forth. We're going to pivot into our quick fires here in a minute, Ron. But for the audience, you hit on a few things, and if you are someone out there, Ron, feel free to correct me. But I pick it right off of the website again, which is publicly available. Some of the goals of NASA: promoting and incentivizing private industry to facilitate the creation of new global and domestic markets. Ron spoke to that about tech transfer and commercialization and invention and stuff, very similar to other R&D agencies like the DOE, for example, the DOD, NSF, National Science. Enhancing access to space-derived information and services. If you're a technologist, that should resonate with you and how you can align your mission or your capability. Collaboration with industry, goal 4. Special attention to cyber and supply chains, as well as in goal 4. You can read these folks, but these really struck, me, Ron, with increase the quality of life for all humanity and develop technologies and operations efficiently and effectively. And everywhere in here, it's littered with, collaborating with our industry partners and academia. So that's my summation, Ron, of so much of what whoever watches this is says, wow, he's a very progressive, awesome guy, but he also has a responsibility. And you're basically telling folks, and it's written here in the strategic plan, that we have to work together. So, all right, Ron, there's 3 questions. This is what I love to do. 2 minutes per response, because you've already laid out a lot of the strategic and how you think about things. But I think this would be a good opportunity for those watching to really kind of sink their teeth into something, should they have an opportunity to meet you, hear you speak, and not just have to give you a business card, but reference something you said on the show here. So first question, my friend, what do you, Ron Thompson, hope to accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months?
So it's a good question, Pete. We have an administration change, so we're going to see for our agency a pivot in priorities. So we have to align to the guidance coming in. So we're starting that work as an agency. We're getting ready for fiscal year 22 and 23 planning cycles. So what we hope to achieve is that alignment, number one, top of mind. And then also working with our mission directorates to find areas of opportunity where we can find pain points and look at synergistic ways to come together as an enterprise. So that is really top of mind for us, working with our business leaders to find those areas. And collectively, we're stronger together than we are, alone. So getting that mindset, getting that culture change, and we are making very good progress in that world right now. Now, our office is called Business Innovation Office, and Jill Marlowe and I are part of that. So we're using digital as a lever at this moment in time, but we're going to be doing other transformation activities like a new operating model for the agency, what I've alluded to already. But so we're hoping to identify the synergistic areas of transformation and that coupling for the next 6 months, aligning to that budget cycle, aligning it to the administration.
And it sounds like, thank you for that. It sounds like obviously technology will underpin a good bit of that. And again, I'm going to just reference my notes here that I've got 2 wonderful pages of them already, Ron, is that automation, reskilling, allowing, as I like to say, the bits and the bytes to do the stuff that we as human beings can't do 24/7, but we glean enlightenment from it. So well said, and shout out to Jill as well and what you're going to do with that innovation office. It'll be great to watch it evolve. So thank you. Okay. Question 2, what opportunities, now this is you with your hat on as a visionary, what opportunities does the current technology landscape present, not just at NASA, but in the world, Ron?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question, Pete. I think we are seeing we're seeing platforms that are becoming more and more inclusive, more and more agile in the way they work. So a lot in the past, a lot of technology would come in and it'd be very purpose built, purpose design, and the business workflow really, you have to take what's in the box, right? So we're seeing platforms that really are. It's really a sweet spot, right? It's not fully customizable, but you can move some dials and tweak some things to conform to how the customer's doing business. So we're seeing these platforms advance. I think the opportunity, though, Pete, is I'm seeing a world where it's not about one tool for a common thing, but how all those tools work. We're in a virtual environment. We're using Zoom. We're using Teams. We're using WebEx. You could continue to name these tools, but I think as a community, we really need to see how they interoperate and leave the endpoint decision to the customer. But how does it all immersively come together from a user experience, right? So there's the opportunity. We're not there. Because I'll tell you, even today, I think I was on 4 different discussions and went to 4 different tools that behaved differently, that had to require a reboot of the endpoints. So that convergence and that interoperability of the way we're doing things right now, that needs to be top of mind. Now, I realize that competitive advantages for a lot of these capabilities and are really locked down. and are really customizable by the provider. And I realize that that's their intellectual property and they don't want to share it. But I will tell you the major pain point for people like me, Pete, are how do these things all work together and how can I share information? And how do they integrate? That is a real big problem, and it's a real big opportunity. So.
Yeah. No, I hate that when we do a parting shot, I think I'm going to kind of steal some of that, but so simple, Ron. Thank you. Sharing information. We have plenty of tools in our toolboxes. I hear quite often on the street, in my new life, and I heard it when I was is we buy a lot. Yeah. I always like to remind people, government, 90 billion a year, thereabout every year in IT and support. We're buying, we're being sold to. I like to emphasize how seeking and solving the right mix, but also addressing integration is paramount. So thank you. Third question and final before parting shots. How can industry, you touched on it a bit, how can industry better prepare itself to support your mission?
Yeah, Pete, we sort of sprinkled this out through the discussion today. Be prepared, do your homework. Find out what the problem really is. And that takes a minute or two, right? And don't assume that just because it makes sense one place, it will make sense in another. But also, I would also recommend that it's all about trust and relationships, right? Build that trust network, build the community where if you don't know somebody, make sure that somebody that does know somebody introduces you. So that counts, that matters, right? That the professional connection. I always start with a level of trust. If I know I have a partner, and notice, Pete, I didn't use the word vendor. If I have a partner that's helped me in the past, there's a very good likelihood that you may be seeing them again, because we've had that understanding, and I know I can count on them. And so that is a big part of doing business, and not only in the federal space, but in the commercial private sector as well. You have your partnerships between company to company, and I'll just share this quick story with you. I don't know, back in I think the early 2000s, I had an opportunity to go to Stockholm, Sweden, with John Zachman, the father of enterprise architecture. So very big friend of John. He's another mentor, by the way. So John and I were on this business trip, and we were talking about the certification for the Zachman enterprise architecture, and he wanted me to come over to speak as the chief enterprise architect for the Decennial Census Bureau. So I was over there talking to these companies, and I said, well, how do the companies do business together? And they said, well, we basically open everything up, open their IP up, and they work together in joint ventures for a specific matter, and will advance whatever the matter they're working on. Let's see, it's vaccine development. We'll take a COVID for vaccine development. We'll come together. We'll share our IP, and when that engagement's over, we'll take everything back down, and everybody will respect each other's IP. And I'm sitting here going, I cannot believe that is so. That will never happen in the U.S. because that IP is the crown jewels of why you exist. It isn't shared, but they're doing it there culturally to advance their society, right? And they weren't doing vaccine development. I'm just making that, but they were I would just give you that as an example, how it could be used. But I was shocked at the openness and trust, that level of trust between companies that may be partners and may be competitors at one time. So I think, that's, some say maybe that's counterintuitive to the culture of the US and how the companies work together. But I think, this pandemic, we have to think differently. And I think we have come together. NASA was a very big part of our success is protecting our people and pushing out early during the pandemic. We are very, very successful in keeping our work going. But it is a mindset shift, Pete. It is a trust, trust opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ron. I mean, I wrote down, do homework, be prepared, know the problem, build a trust relationship. And I love trust network. and of course, connections, dots and bridges. Hey, I'm, got to throw it out there. That's all I do is connect dots, build bridges, and tap into the inner dot connector that you absolutely are, and others. So Ron, thank you. Hey folks, before we head to the parting shot, I guess I'm going to do mine now. And Ron, this gives you a little bit of breather to kind of synthesize what you want to leave. I think it's always good when people get to hear whether it's a tweetable moment or just some of those pearls of wisdom. Folks, Ron Thompson is obviously amazing. He's had an incredible journey. It's an honor to know him. He's a friend. He's a colleague. I've learned something new about you, even though I thought I knew you pretty darn well, Ron, today. But he's been a chief fill in the blank, 30 years. For those of you watching, it really is about connecting with people like Ron, knowing that he is influential, but he also was an influencer. And I think that's what I took away today, Ron. And I'm going to think about that as I do what I do, and that's continue to educate, enlighten, and inform industry in my role today, to just know who you're speaking to, but also whether Ron leaves or not, it's pervasive in government to work with folks like yourself, and your passion is indeed infectious. So thank you for that. So you have the floor, my friend. Parting shot.
Well, thank you again, Pete, for having me. Just hearing this, I can't believe you're describing me, a little old me, but thank you. It's all about opportunity. So I'll start out by saying, be prepared, right? Be prepared in your work, be prepared in what you're going to bring, from our private sector folks. Be prepared about doing your homework. Don't go in making assumptions. And the next thing is be humble. It isn't about titles. I don't like titles. This is me, and Pete, this is Pete and Ron here. So, this is just me as a person. And what are we doing as people to make it better for those behind us? So just remember that. Be kind to each other. These are hard times we're living in right now. We do not know our individual stories. This is just unforeseen, unpredicted. I would have never thought we were going to be operating the way we have been, but this has also made us more resilient in what we're doing. So we've always talked about technology being any place, anywhere for anyone. I think these are now the big opportunities to really live that. Just when doors open, just be aware enough to walk through them, because each of us are going to have opportunities that we may not see, but be wise enough to walk through, and don't be afraid to take a chance. Be confident in yourself. Be confident in what you can bring, and always be self-aware.
Yeah, I dropped the mic on that one, pal. That was awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So Ron, until we do this again, I'm going to track some of this evolution of the new office. I'm digging that logo, by the way, in the background. So looking forward to hearing that, and I'll see you around on the circuit here, my friend. Thanks for being on the show, taking time. You always have something to offer anybody who's listening. And again, I'm grateful to know you, buddy.
Thank you, Pete. Everyone, take care of yourself.